What is human trafficking, also commonly known as sex slavery and sex trafficking? United Nations defines human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another for the purpose of exploitation. Let's break down this definition to gain a better understanding of exactly what it entails. There are three core elements to define what human trafficking really is. First is the action, which refers to the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons. Second is the means. This includes threat of or use of force, deception, coercion, abuse of power, or position of vulnerability. And third is the purpose. The main purpose of trafficking is always exploitation. In the words of the Trafficking Protocol, Article 3, exploitation shall include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor, or services, slavery, or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. Once the formal UN definition is understood, there are other simpler ways to understand the reality of this issue. Human trafficking is being bought and sold against your will. This may result in several outcomes: sexual exploitation, forced bagging, sacrificial worship, removal of human organs, forced marriage, sweatshops, circuses, farm labor, or domestic servitude. Human trafficking is growing at an alarming rate. Human trafficking is the world's fastest growing crime, the fastest growing form of slavery, and one of the largest sources of income for an organized crime according to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. Human trafficking is the second largest source of illegal income worldwide, only exceeded by drugs trafficking. Human trafficking is violent. Victims of human trafficking are always coerced. Traffickers use tactics such as physical abuse, fear, torture, and/or threats to their family in order to exert their power over their victims. Who are the victims of human trafficking? According to a 2007 report from the U.S. Department of State Trafficking in Persons, 600,000 to 800,000 men, women, and children are trafficked across international borders each year. Approximately 80% of these victims are women and girls, and up to 50% are minors. UNICEF estimates that 2 million children are trafficked every year. Since the majority of human trafficking is underground, often not identified or misidentified, it is hard to establish an exact number. However, at least 20.9 million people are victims of forced labor worldwide. A 2012 research report estimated that trafficking victims encompass at least 44% of this. Where does human trafficking occur? Every continent and every country in the world is affected by human trafficking, whether it's an origin country where the people are trafficked from, a transit country where people are trafficked through, or a destination country where people are trafficked to. The majority of trafficked victims, however, arguably come from the poorest countries of the national population, who are rendered vulnerable due to poverty, conflict, or other harsh conditions. The National Geographic has mapped out the top 9 countries in the world that harbor the largest amount of 21st century slaves. This includes the US, Haiti, France, Mauritania, Brazil, Turkey, China, UAE, and Thailand. Why is trafficking a human rights issue? According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, Article 4 states that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all of their forms. And Article 5 states that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Human trafficking often emerges in locations where human rights issues are already prevalent, such as poverty, discrimination, and violence, causing people in these areas, specifically women, vulnerable to trafficking. Now, in the 21st century, far more women and girls are shipped into brothels annually than African slaves were shipped into slave plantations each year in the 18th century. Too many people turn a blind eye to this issue, when in reality, it could be happening in your own backyard. Human trafficking is not only a reality for those in the developing world, but it is also a reality for many Canadians as well. Canada is considered a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children who are trafficked for the purposes of sexual exploitation and forced labor. According to the RCMP, 800 to 1,200 people are trafficked in and through Canada every year. 2,200 men, women, and children are trafficked into America from Canada each year, and a girl in Canada can be sold for $15,000 and earn her owner over $40,000 a year. Women and girls from Aboriginal communities, as well as minors in the child welfare system, are the most vulnerable to human trafficking in Canada. Foreign women, particularly from Asia or East Europe, are also heavily subjected to human trafficking as well. This issue is most prevalent in Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia. As quoted by Dondre Lampkin, "In this great land of the free, we call it human trafficking, and so long as we don't partake in the luxury, ignoring slavery is of no consequence. It is much easier to look away and ignore the victims. The person who ignores slavery justifies it by quickly deducting the victim as a willing participant hampered by misfortune." Human trafficking is all around us. It's in the books we read, in the movies we watch, appears in TV shows, and is all across the news. So what can you do to help? Most importantly, educate yourself. Become informed on this issue, follow events in the news, and always keep your eyes open as human trafficking is occurring all around us. Once you're informed, raise awareness. Tell your friends, family, co-workers, or really anyone you want to engage in conversation with. And lastly, if you want to go even further, get involved in the issue. Cheryl Wooden, author of Half the Sky, quoted that the tools to crush modern slavery exist, but the political will is what's lacking. Stop the Traffic. It's a global movement of individuals, communities, and organizations fighting to prevent human trafficking around the world. It was first established in 2006 and currently has 45,000 members from countries all over the world. Stop the Traffic organizes both local action and global action. At a local level, every instance of trafficking involves a person being trafficked from a community into a community. Therefore, the community must work together to prevent it. This organization works to inspire, inform, equip, and mobilize communities to know what trafficking is and how to identify it, know how to protect themselves and others, and know how to respond to the issue. At a global level, this organization works to unite people around the world through their global campaigns. Their campaigns target decision makers to exert their influence to prevent human trafficking, build a global movement by continually reaching out to new people, raise money for projects that protect those who are most vulnerable, and gather information from the community to develop up-to-date information to rival the traffickers' network. It's easy to get involved and become an advocate for Stop the Traffic by simply going to their website, www.stopthetraffic.org, and signing up to become a member of their global movement. They can notify you when there are cases in your location to get involved in, as well as for any community in the world you're interested in helping out. So go ahead, click the link. Start fighting to help end human trafficking now.